Describe the background for Gestalt play therapy and the Oaklander model of Gestalt therapy with children and adolescents.
When I was training to be a Gestalt therapist a long time ago, 1969, 70, 71, or even a little 72, I was very impressed with my experience. And I wanted to figure out a way to bring it to children because I was working already with emotionally disturbed children, and I had a group that met for 2 years every week whose fathers were alcoholics in an alcoholic treatment program in the Navy. And so that was quite interesting to have these children and begin to have a feeling for what I could do with them based on Gestalt therapy principles. And some of the principles that intrigued me were the fact that it was non-analytical, that nobody interpreted what I said or did. I mean, they may have said, well, it sounds to me like you're saying, but nobody told me, you know, the trouble with you is, and I kind of liked that. I thought that would be good to work with kids. And also, I liked the fact that it was process-oriented rather than content-oriented. So even though we may use content as examples of process, it's focusing more on how you are and what you do in life that keeps you from having problems, keeps you from being happy and continue to have problems. And when, as an adult, when you can see this, you can then begin to make a choice of maybe doing something different. There's a certain area of making the client responsible for themselves rather than telling them how to be. And this can be very powerful with people.
What qualities do you think you would say distinguish the therapeutic relationship and Gestalt therapy with children?
We kind of follow something we call the I-thou relationship, which comes from the philosophical writings of Martin Buber. And it really means that two people come together as equals. And just because I'm older or have more education doesn't make me a better person. So we honor the client, and I honor the child and the child's parents. And it's more of a stance than it is a technique or anything. It's a way of being. And they sense it immediately. So we're sort of equal people in our journey here. And there are some other elements that are part of this, especially in work with children. It's like I'd like to meet the child where he or she is, not how I expect him to be or want him to be, but how he actually is. And although I know they usually have a wider potential, I definitely want to accept and be non-judgmental about how they are. And I won't, as part of this relationship, will not manipulate, or I will be as authentic as I can be. And I won't use a phony voice, which some therapists seem to do with children. We'll use a baby voice or a high voice, or I'm just going to be myself when unless we're play acting something where I need a phony voice. But this is kind of, the other thing is I respect the child's limits, but I also respect my own. I'm aware of my own limits and I respect them, and don't try to be something I'm not.
Describe why the concept of integration is significant to Gestalt play therapy.
Well, I think that one of the things that kids do, and adults too, of course, is split off and divide themselves. And it's kind of a very common thing. We have one way of being in a certain situation. We have another way we might be in another situation. Particularly children who have taken messages early in life about themselves. And children take in messages about themselves when they're like 4 and 5, when they don't have the cognitive ability to say, this isn't right for me, or this doesn't fit for me, so they believe it. So they might believe, for instance, that I'm dumb, or I'm clumsy, or I'm bad, but that there's another part of them that wants to grow up and do the best they can in life, and so there becomes a split. And one of the things we attempt to do is integrate the whole organism so that they can function using everything they have available to them.
Describe how you incorporated Gestalt therapy into your use of play with children.
Well, you know, I read Virginia Axline and Clark Moustakis. I was very impressed with their work, especially Clark Moustakis, actually. And I knew that this could definitely be a part of this work. And although a lot of their work is considered to be non-directive, and my work is probably a bit more directive, but really it's like a dance. Sometimes I lead, sometimes the child leads, and it's open for whatever seems to fit, whatever needs to happen. And I felt that the play, the idea of play, is definitely a part of what I do. And sometimes I can give you amazing examples of kids who enact in their play parts of their lives, and or maybe stuff that happened to them that we call sometimes unfinished business that happened to them in the past that's still kind of with them, and play out, enact these incidents. And they seem to be, it's very effective when they do that. And of course, we all know that play is the child's language. So it just fit right in with what I do. Children will express themselves much more authentically through a drawing, or working with clay, or doing a scene in the sand. I mean, I've had children do scenes in the sand that you would never imagine that they could articulate that kind of thing. And so these expressive techniques are the way the child knows the world, and they love doing this.
Do you think the process of identifying or applying these ideas to their own life is significant in the therapeutic process?
Yes, because it enhances the self. And as I said, most of the kids that I've seen don't feel good about themselves. They don't really know themselves. And the more they can say, yes, this is what I feel like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, I get mad like that lion. Yeah, I do. And the stronger they begin to feel, the more support they have within themselves.
How has the concept of the present moment influenced Gestalt play therapists?
For one, first of all, the present moment is all we have. We are here in the present. And how the child relates to the therapist is very important and significant. And it's what's happening in the present. And even stuff from the past becomes part of the present. It's within you. It's deep within you. Trauma, any of trauma experiences from the past stay with us. And when we can look at them and deal with them and bring them out, makes a big difference. I've never had a kid say to me, I really need to work on my abuse, or I really need to deal with what happened to me when I was 4 and my mother was in the hospital a long time. Usually that won't happen, but it becomes part of the present out of many of the techniques that we use, whether it's play or clay or art or whatever, any of these techniques. A mother came in to talk to me about her adolescent son because he wouldn't come, but she came, 16 years old. She had a lot of complaints. And I said to her, would you imagine that he's with us right here in the office? Let's imagine this pillow is your son. Could you tell him what you're telling me? And so it's a little hard for her at first, but I coached her and encouraged her. So she started to say, I don't know what to do with you. I don't know. Started yelling at the pillow, and then she burst into tears. And I said, what is it? And she said, it's not him, it's me. I just don't know how to be a mother to him. And we came right down to the core of this. And that's the power of being in the present moment.
What is the most important factor in the therapeutic work with children?
I would say the relationship. Gestalt therapy is a relational kind of therapy, how we relate to others, the environment, and in the therapy office with the therapist. And I think that's what's important. And if the child has trouble making a relationship, which certainly we have that experience, the therapy becomes focusing on establishing a relationship.
What significant questions or issues should receive more research or in-depth examination by the play therapy community?
We have a lot of different kinds of play therapy. We have now, I'm talking about Gestalt play therapy. There's Adlerian play therapy. There's Jungian play therapy. I can't even think of all the others, but there are many disciplines, and they can all be focused on working with children. I'd like to know more about that. I think the community needs to know, what does that mean? Like we're doing this, and I don't know who's going to hear, even if you understand the whole thing about Gestalt play therapy, because it's much more complicated than what I'm saying here. But I'm sure that's true for all these other disciplines. I would certainly like to know more about that. Well, there is a certain amount of research going on now, but it's not that evident, it's not that known, and there's a lot of emphasis now on, in some agencies, where if you're working with children, you need to use evidence-based work. Well, in order to have evidence-based work, you need more research, and I find it's very difficult to do research when you're working with children. It's not so simple to have a control group and the other group and the measurements, but we need to try.
What trainings and experiences do you think are important for new therapists working with children?
Unfortunately, I don't think people who won't go into play therapy get much training when they're going to school. They may take a class on therapy and a specific discipline, but it's a class. It's not really training. I don't think, my experience with new therapists is that they don't really know very much about what they're doing. So they need postgraduate training, much like a doctor would be an intern before, going out into the world with being a doctor. So I think there has to be more of this kind of hands-on training. And there are some training programs around. There are some Gestalt trainings, and I don't really know. There's play therapy trainings, but there has to be more of this and more available to students.
When reviewing your career as a mental health professional with a focus on the well-being of children, of what are you most proud?
Well, I guess I'm the most proud of the 2 books that I've written, and I'm especially proud of the first one. It was published in 1978, Windows to Our Children, a Gestalt therapy approach with children and adolescents, and it's still functioning. It's in 14 or maybe 15 languages. And the thing that I really am proud of is that the work seems to fit different cultures. I mean, the work is available in many kinds of cultures. And not only is the book is translated, but people have come to trainings that I used to do from amazing places. And it really is very gratifying to know that the work is used in so many different kinds of ways and with so many different kinds of children. And I think I'm most proud of that.